Hmm? Ah!
Sir Jorah, bind this woman to the pyre. You swore to obey me. I am Daenerys Stormborn, of House Targaryen, of the blood of old Valyria. I am the dragon's daughter, and I swear to you that those who would harm you will die screaming.
You will not hear me scream.
I will. But it's not your screams I want. Only your life.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to our podcast. I'm Duncan.
I'm Kristen.
And I'm Travis.
And this is Game of Microphones, episode 52. And today we are covering Game of Thrones Season 1, Episode 10, the finale of the first season,
Woo!
Fire and Blood.
Yeah.
Great episode. And just so that everybody is aware, this is a spoiler-filled podcast. We are doing the rewatch of the series from the perspective of somebody who's caught up to current episodes, which is Season 7, Episode 7. So, welcome back to the podcast, Kristen and Travis. It's great to have you guys.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
I'm stoked.
All right.
Hello, Travis.
I know, we finally get to be on the same episode.
It's very exciting.
Yes.
All right. You guys want to jump right into it?
I'll let Kristen
Sure.
start.
All right.
Oh, yay.
Here's our
Okay,
Game of Thrones top 5.
Top 5,
Or top,
3.
yeah, top 3.
With 3.
Okay, so my number 3 is I've grouped it together as the aftermath and the forward action that it's caused. So, we start off this episode and it's basically a lot of, okay, Ned's dead, now what? And so you go through a lot of different people that are doing a whole lot of different things. Sansa is now Joffrey's official plaything. Tywin and his armies can't broker a truce because they no longer they've pissed everybody off by killing Ned. Arya turns into a boy to be hidden away. Jon tries to abandon the Watch. The North secedes from the Seven Kingdoms. Robb is proclaimed the king in the North, which makes 4 kings. So there's a lot and Cersei Catelyn is totally never going to give Jaime back willingly. So
Never.
Yeah.
It just willingly, right? At this point.
Yeah, at this point, yeah.
In the moments of, the Ravens showing up with the scrolls that Ned is dead, it was just kind of like this whole like ripple effect of, okay, the big thing has happened and now we're going to move on with the story and see kind of where the cards lie.
Yeah, everything starts going crazy after this. You nailed it. Lots of crazy stuff happening.
This is the pivot point of the episode, or of the season, or of the series, I mean, for me at least.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
I definitely agree. Yeah, and there's, and a lot of people are just kind of acting or reacting, just, there's a lot of honor happening. There's a lot of reactive anger happening. I don't know. It's like all of the stages of grief are happening all at the same time.
Right. That's my number 3 is all the reactions to Ned's death. You've got Bran and Rickon both having psychic dreams, which is super crazy and creepy. Like making the hand stand up on your neck type of vibe. It's actually pretty funny, right? When Bran is heading down into the crypt with Osha, and he's explaining to her that he has the dream of the three-eyed raven, and the raven brings him down into the crypt, and he sees Ned there, and she's kind of like rationalizing, like, "Oh, he's not dead yet. He's not going to be in the crypt for many years to come." And Bran can sense that she's afraid, though, which is pretty wild considering we're talking about Osha here, who's like scared of nothing. He's like, "I'm a cripple and I'm not scared. Like, what's your problem?" And then they get down there and
there's the sudden movement.
Yeah, she's like, "Yeah, see, Ned's not here. Everything's cool." And then Shaggy Dog comes growling out of the darkness and super creepy.
Was that weird to anybody else that Shaggy Dog did that?
Not necessarily, because he's the one direwolf that's sort of the most like Rickon. Every one of the direwolves sort of has taken on traits of their human, and Rickon is kind of like this like wild dude at this point, a little bit doing his own thing.
Well, that's what happens when no one raises you.
Yeah, when you're left alone as like a 4-year-old.
I think that in the book series they elaborate a little bit more on Shaggy Dog and his more wild side, kind of like Rickon when he's running around Winterfell.
Right.
I just remember some stuff about that, and definitely they kind of showed it in the series, but they didn't really explain it too much. I mean, he wasn't there for very long.
Right, so it could feel like surprising not having that background information.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I was just more taken aback that he would attack or growl with Bran there.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Osha's a wildling, and I understand that because we don't really trust her at this point, but
yeah,
it was just odd to me. That's all.
Yeah, I can see that. Maybe he was reacting to her fear. Because, animals like dogs are like react to emotion and stuff like that, right?
Mm-hmm. I mean, Rob got Grey Wind to do that later on, or maybe it already happened with Jaime.
Oh, right. Yeah, I think that's next season. Yeah.
Yeah, next season. I'm all over the place right now.
Sure.
I'm like Bran. Yeah. My brain's all over.
Yeah, everywhere. Then we got other interesting reactions too. We've got Rob, who just freaks out, totally freaks out. Imagine that being like the commander of your army. What is somebody going to say, like your other battle commanders, when they come upon you, like, beating your freaking sword against a tree in the middle of the woods?
You know what this scene reminded me of with Rob?
What?
I know it came out before, but in the Force Awakens, when
Kylo Ren
beating the hell out of the computers and the stormtroopers, I'm just like, maybe we'll just go the opposite way. I think that's what his commander.
That's spot on. Yeah, Rob totally.
So it was emo Rob.
Yeah, he was just super.
Yeah, Kylo Rob. Pretty classic. And Catelyn sort of freaks out for a moment there too. You need to steady yourself on the tree. Arya just sort of shut down, and was just like leaning against Yoren, who keeps calling her a boy, and she's all confused, and he starts cutting her hair off, which is a pretty funny scene.
Cutting the hair off, yeah.
Yeah, and
like, I'm not a boy.
She's always having people call her a boy. It's just so funny. I like how she's hooked up with the Night's Watch crew heading north, though. That's pretty cool. And you can tell the way it's reacted, the way she's sort of reacted to Ned's death is she's sort of closed off and become cold. Like she sort of is super willing to totally murder Hot Pie at that one point,
She totally would have done it.
Yeah, it was hilarious how Hot Pie is bragging about having killed that boy. I knocked him down, I kicked him in the balls, and I kept kicking him until he was dead.
I actually wrote down in my notes, like in capitals, Hot Pie and Gendry, because it's like the introduction of them.
Right. Yeah, and Lami. The fuck's a Lami?
I love that meme.
Lami.
Yeah.
So Arya calls out Hot Pie, I bet you're a liar, but I'm not. I'm good at killing fat boys, and I like killing fat boys. So she's sort of like, triggered into a dimension of sociopathy as a result of Ned's death, which is kind of sad, and we definitely see that continue and grow to some extent, at least. She manages to resist it with her inner situation with when she's told to kill the actress lady in season 6, right? So she sort of resists their total psychopathy and is overwhelmed with emotion and logical thought at that point and won't just go along with it, which is pretty cool. I liked Jon Snow's Moonlight Ride too. He sort of freaks out as a reaction and wants to go and protect Robb and be there for Robb and put his sword through Joffrey's throat, which is a nice sentiment that I'm sure lots of people appreciated. I
think everybody wanted to do that.
Yeah, I was going to say, I bet you would want to do that, Kristen.
Yes.
I like how they got him to come back. They just started reciting the oath right then and there out in the woods.
Yeah, that was really cool. It's one of a few times where the oath is spontaneously recited by members of the Night's Watch at moments of extreme, at moments where they need to get their bravery up or get themselves ready or to do the right thing, whatever that may be, to come back to the wall or to fend off a giant that's about to kill you and all your friends in a tiny little tunnel.
Gren.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think it was just the 3 times that we ever heard the words was the original time and then this time and in this finale and then when Gren was trying to tell everybody, we're staying here.
Is that we haven't heard it any more than that, you don't think?
I don't think that they've said it any other times. I was thinking about it.
Maybe at Maester Aemon's death, was it incorporated in there? Maybe, I don't know. I can't remember.
Not the whole oath, but I mean there was other times throughout the show.
Yeah, we've definitely gotten
in season 7. You got little bits, and Sam when he's up on the wall with Jon, and he's going off about how it says
the vows.
The vows, and like, well, it doesn't say I have to have a kid or whatever.
So yeah, that was cool with Jon riding off and coming back, and I like the moment with Lord Commander Mormont when he says, "Honor brought you back," and he's like, "Well, my friends brought me back." Actually, it's like, I didn't say your honor.
I didn't say it was your honor.
Yeah, but that was a cool moment too. They're reciting the oath and everything, the vows, and then Sam walks up with Longclaw and like sort of symbolically hands it back to Jon. And I like that they pointed that out too, because it showed that Jon, much in the same way that Jorah did, had enough grace to leave the sword behind when he was betraying Lord Mormont.
Yeah.
And then we get the scene with Mormont and Jon talking about it. You look exhausted. Was your Moonlight Ride that tiring? And he's all surprised, and he explains that if they beheaded everybody that abandoned for a night, the wall would be guarded by ghosts, which is pretty cool. And he starts mentioning all these bizarre reports from up north of villages, wildling villages being abandoned and whatnot, and fires burning all throughout the night in the mountains far away. And he basically...
Yeah, that was in my notes because he basically gives the entire speech that Jon says about 50 times in season 7. It's like Jon got the template in this episode. Okay, this is what you're going to say. You're going to talk about the White Walkers and the war up to the north and how none of this throne stuff matters anymore because the real war is coming. Okay, you got it? Great. Now I'm going to go die.
Yeah, it's so perfect.
You got it from here, buddy.
Yeah, do you think your brother's war is more important than ours? No.
That's actually my number 3.
Oh yeah? Go right into it then.
Oh good, let's go right into it.
Yeah, it was just I wrote down Lord Commander Mormont's badass speech.
Nice.
And so I actually wrote down the whole speech. Do you think your brother's war is more important than ours? When dead men and worse come hunting for us in the night, do you think it matters who sits on the Iron Throne? Good, because I want you and your wolf with us when we ride out beyond the wall tomorrow. The Night's Watch will ride out in full force against the wildlings, White Walkers, and whatever else is out there, and we will find Benjen Stark, alive or dead, and I will command them myself. So I only ask you once, Lord Snow, are you a brother of the Night's Watch, or are you a bastard boy who wants to play at war?
Yeah, so classic.
That was my number 3. I love that because it just kind of, I mean, it's the end of the season and we're finally going out beyond the wall and we don't really know what's out there, and besides from small reports and what we saw in the pilot.
And considering all the chaos that's going on down south, for someone to say, do you think it matters who sits on the Iron Throne when dead men and worse come hunting for us in the night? It kind of puts everything in perspective, and it's like, oh shit, like there's something serious going on up north if it doesn't even matter who's the king, really, when that shit happens.
When I first watched this whole first season, I think I joined in, I think it was like, the first live episode I watched was Battle of Blackwater, so that's season 2. So I was binging it all, and then when it got to this moment right here, I was just like, like what you just said, I was like, oh damn,
yeah,
there's all this chaos, and then for a couple episodes we kind of forgot about like what's up north, and the way he just gives this speech, he makes it seem like this is the most important thing that we need to focus on, like, right now.
Right, and Jon sort of represents the viewer in this scene, he's like all worried about everything that's going on down south, and then he's just totally blindsided by like the truth coming from the Lord Commander that it's truly insignificant in the grand scheme of things compared to what's probably coming from from beyond the wall, which is hardcore. What do you think, Kristen?
Oh, I agree with what you guys are saying. I just I just started laughing so hard when he started saying this speech to Jon. Honestly, because it's Jon's speech now.
Yeah,
These words do not belong to Lord Commander Mormont anymore.
Yep.
So but it also shows how far Jon has come. He's gotten to the point now that this
since
is
season 1.
Right. Yeah. He's taken this, he's taken Longclaw and he's just kind of run with it.
Yeah. He's taken Longclaw and taken up the mantle. Like you're saying, he started off running down to the south again here temporarily, thinking that that's where, his attention needed to be. And he really steps up to the plate and gets his focus in the right spot after this.
Yeah, absolutely. It was when I was watching that scene, and you're watching Jon's face as Mormont is speechifying him, and all I could think about was you and Jason talking last week about how you could make a drinking game out of how many times his mouth is left open in the season. And I'm like, oh, this is one of those moments.
I don't even remember talking about that. That's hilarious.
I actually listened today to that.
Oh man, that's a great moment. I like that one line too. I think you left it out of your quote there, Travis. But he says, "I'll not sit meekly by and wait for the snows. We need to find out what's happening." So yeah, it's just cool. He's like, "Fuck that! I'm not just hanging around, and waiting to see what comes. We got to figure this shit out, boys."
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's such a classic line. I want you and your wolf with us when we ride out beyond the wall tomorrow. And then boom, like this triumphant music starts to swell as Jon's like, beyond the wall. Exactly what he's always dreamed of,
He's like, I'm a ranger.
Yeah.
Yes.
A roundabout way to get there, but that's the end goal,
You know that they didn't go back to Castle Black in all of season 2?
Oh, I never realized that.
Yeah, I noticed that. Yeah, they were gone. They were out there for quite a while.
Wow.
Yeah, the producers were really upset that they built these massive sets
and
for Castle Black and for the Eyrie, and they didn't revisit them once in season 2.
That's so funny. The Eyrie, I didn't even think of that. We didn't go to the Eyrie in season 2?
I guess not.
Wow.
Which is fine.
Oh, yeah, fine. No more milk sops to deal with for a little while.
I don't need to see any of that anymore.
Oh, man. I do miss that moon door, though, whenever I'm not around it.
You better miss it. You don't want to go through it.
I love that moon door. What's your number 2, Kristen?
My number 2 is Tyrion becoming the Hand.
Nice.
Yes, I wrote that in my notes.
Oh, yay!
Not my number 2, but it's in my notes.
So, I just feel like this was such a huge moment for so many different reasons. And One of them, let me go back to my notes where it is. One of them is that this is kind of where Tyrion's experience of ruling begins. This is where he begins to become the hand of the queen, right? He's going to rule back in King's Landing for Joffrey, and he's given this huge gift by his father, who has never really cared about him or considered him an equal, and he gives him this huge responsibility when he could have given it to anybody else.
Yeah.
And I think Tywin made the decision to do this when Tyrion broke that glass, and he said, "There's your piece. You can't drink from it anymore. You know, now that Ned's dead."
Yeah, I agree.
Robb Stark's not coming to the table, and I think that's when Tywin realized that, he's really smart, and he's probably Tywin's intellectual equal.
Yeah, that's what he meant when he said, "You are my son." And Tyrion said, "Why me?"
I wrote that quote down, "You're my son," right here. So
yeah,
that was definitely like a highlight.
We have a listener mentioning this scene too in the Ravens calls. So why do you think that he gave him this?
It's interesting. It's interesting that, he says it at that time because, he never really wanted to admit that Tyrion was his son. He wanted to prove that he was not his son. But I think what if one of the reasons that Tywin hated Tyrion so much wasn't that, he was this dwarf or he might not have been his son, but it was just because he couldn't control him. He had control over Jaime. Jaime was going to do whatever his dad told him. Cersei was going to do whatever Tywin told him because she was a woman and she still had a lot to learn. This is season 1 Cersei, right? This isn't season 7 Cersei. This is,
exactly.
Somebody who is still trying to get her father's acceptance and be queen and make sure that her son is going to be the legitimate king, even though she knows it's wrong, right? So she's still kind of in panic mode. So she desperately wants her father's, approval and acceptance. So she's more controllable, her and Jaime. But Tyrion's kind of a wild card, right?
Absolutely.
He's smart. He's cunning. He likes his whores.
He'll get
he doesn't
married.
listen to his. Yeah, he doesn't. He doesn't listen.
We get that this episode too, and he decides to take Shay to King's Landing with him.
Right. And so I guess my thought is that, Tywin's just like, okay, well, clearly I've been wrong about you, so let's see what you do with this. I mean, we've already got a crazy person at King's Landing sitting on the throne, so what more can happen at this point?
Yeah, I think that when they were sitting there and Tyrion broke that glass and just had a crystal clear view of the situation, Tywin realized that Tyrion was the only other person in the room who understood what the fuck was happening, basically to the same degree that he did. And right. I think that gave him a little bit of respect for Tyrion. I like the line where he said, "I used to think you were a stunted fool."
Because maybe, you were half right.
Yeah, maybe I was wrong, half wrong.
And this is also season 2 Tyrion is just, I love season 2 Tyrion. So yeah, it's just the beginning of a very wonderful Tyrion arc, right? Mm-hmm. So I get really, really excited about Tyrion as Hand of the King.
What about you, Trav? What do you think?
I was just going to make a little note on when Tyrion hit the cup and, he said, "There's your piece," and all of that kind of stuff. I got a little bit of a flashback to the scene where Cersei and Joffrey were talking. And she was talking to him about like what he would do about the Northerners.
Right.
Yeah, it was just kind of like this little like nod, and then here he does like this crazy thing, even though his mom, I think it was like a few episodes ago, just said like, "What would you do about this?" And how would
he's like, "I'd raise their taxes and send in the Bannermen if they decide to rebel."
Or I'll just chop off the Warden of the North's head and see what happens.
Right. Like, yeah. Oh, yeah. Crazy, man.
It just kind of shows that he doesn't really think the long-term things out very much. It's just kind of in the moment. He's kind of just like, I'll just do this,
Yeah, he's a cliff jumper like Jaime.
Yeah.
Just in a sociopathic, sadistic type of way, as opposed to being an adrenaline junkie. That's funny as hell. Really, that's a good callback to a couple episodes ago with that conversation
yeah.
between Cersei and Joffrey. Were you going to say something, Kristen?
No, I just said, yay.
Yeah, that's awesome. Anything else for your number 2?
No, that was it.
All right. My number 2 is... Wait, yeah, because I went second. Okay, my number 2 is the King in the North. The new King in the North. I love that
that's
scene.
my number 1.
Oh, yeah? Well, we
I hope
can
you
combine
brought
forces
backups,
here.
buddy.
Yeah.
I think it's great. Who is it? One of these guys saying the proper course is clear. We need to pledge fealty to Lord Renly and join our forces with his. And everybody's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Rob's like, Renly's not king. Stannis would be king first. Bran can't be Lord of Winterfell before me. So he's not down. He's like Ned. He's just not the king, basically. And then the great Jon stands up and goes through his whole monologue about, why should we care about these southern kings and their flowery kingdoms and their flowery holdfasts? Why shouldn't we rule ourselves again? It was the dragons we bowed to, and all the dragons are dead. There sits the only king I mean to bend my knee to, the King of the North, and Robb sort of stands up and he's looking at him like, whoa, this is fucking happening, and like steps into that role in that moment, and everybody else pulls out their swords and starts chanting. And what do you want to say about it, Travis?
Okay, well, I really liked Theon's quote there, because he asks, he's like, am I your brother now and always? And then Robb is like, now and always. And then he just draws a sword, and he's just like the king of the
kneels with it. Yeah, my sword is yours in victory or defeat from this day until my last day. Bullshit, Theon, you fucking
or a couple
liar.
of episodes.
Or until my daddy tells me that I can't be king, and I say, watch me, hold my beer.
Yeah, my sword is yours in victory or defeat from this day until the 3rd episode of season 2.
Yeah, right.
What a prick.
You get 3 episodes of my loyalty.
Oh, that's hilarious, man.
Yeah, so I mean, you're asking me kind of what my number 1 was, since we're kind of on the same boat here?
Yeah. Let's just combine your number 2 and my number, or your number 1 and my number 2.
Yeah. Mine was actually Jon. I just got that. Damn.
Sorry, I'm such a child.
I heard the laugh, and I was like, wait,
He
what?
said number 2.
Bread makes me poop.
Okay.
It's late.
Mine.
Sorry.
Was Jon and Robb mirror coronations.
Yeah.
It's I don't know if you guys ever caught this, but it's like it's a mirror image to Jon's coronation.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
The whole speech, like it's almost down quote, like it's almost word for word.
Second time's a charm, right?
Yeah, but here's the I don't know. I like Jon's more because the production series improved over time. And I felt that this coronation scene was just like, yeah, King of the North. Yeah, King of the North. I mean, it was climatic at the time, the first time I watched it. But now that I'm, on this rewatch, it's a little toned down compared to Jon Snow's in the end of season 6. Like, we got like all this like epic music, and then you got Lyanna Mormont's badass speech.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, it's just,
the production values have gone up, and they also didn't get Lyanna Mormont until like season 6 or something.
Yeah. I mean, maybe if Mormont. Well, I mean, her mom technically was with Robb, right? So I mean, she could have had a speech.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Is it Daisy? Is that her mom?
I can't remember what her mom's name is. I just know that she
Mage or something like that.
Mage. She fought and died for Robb Stark, and and the whole.
And she's the one that escaped the Red Wedding. Is that correct? At least in the books.
In the books, I think I do.
Isn't
remember
her whereabouts unknown?
Yeah, but in the show, like Lyanna in whatever season, she says that she died with Robb. I think at the Red Wedding.
Oh man, yeah, we know that Daisy Mormont died with Robb at the Red Wedding. I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Edit. I researched into this a little bit after we recorded and discovered that, yes, on the TV show, Mage Mormont is Lyanna's mother, and she died fighting during the War of Five Kings for Robb Stark. In the books, Dacey, who is Mage's heir, is killed at the Red Wedding, and Mage separates from Robb's host when they arrive to Hagsmire on the way to the wedding. She and Galbert Glover are ordered by Robb to travel to Seaguard. There, they're to take separate ships from Lord Jason Mallister to sail up the Neck and to search for Greywater Watch as envoys to the Crannogmen in preparations for Robb's planned attack on Ironborn-occupied Moat Cailin. And also, they may potentially be transferring information about Jon being the legal heir to the kingship in the north, part of the Grand Northern Conspiracy theory.
Well, I don't mean to step on you real quick, but I think also the reason why Jon's coronation was so much better. I mean, the production value was way better. I totally agree on that. But I think also because Jon clawed his way to the position that he was in.
Exactly.
He was killed by his own people. Right. And then all of a sudden he was being, proclaimed the king in the north as a bastard, with the most badass people in the Seven Kingdoms and the Wildlings.
His ancestral home, like where he grew up,
and he did it without even asking for it, without even, so it was, you were with him on that. We didn't know Robb Stark, I think, as well as we know Jon Snow.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, we have 7 seasons of growth and development.
Yeah,
and self-actualization.
Yeah, so that was just my thought.
Yeah, and I really like the Manderleys too. So I don't know.
The Manderleys?
Yeah, Wyman.
Yeah, I love Wyman.
When that first scene hit, when I was watching that. We didn't have a name or anything. Like I don't remember who I was watching it with. I was watching it with a couple of other people. And I was like, "That's Wyman! That's Wyman right there!" Because being a book reader, I was just like, he's right there."
Oh man, he's so fat in the books.
Oh my god! But
is he the one they call Lord Too Fat to Sit a Horse?
Yeah. But his whole speech about what he did when he like the Frey pies and just
oh yeah.
Read the books.
Also, the stakes are so high when Jon is proclaimed king of the north. I mean, the stakes are really high here as well, with Ned having just been killed and the kingdoms in uproar. But with the threat of the White Walkers coming south later on, and 7 seasons of people being killed off, and war like really starting to build as Dany's heading west and everything, it just seems like so much is happening. It really makes that scene powerful. And plus, I'm not even kidding, like having Lady Lyanna Mormont there just makes it so crazy.
Exactly.
Well, not to mention the huge revelation at the end.
Yeah.
During that proclamation.
Oh, right, yeah, of Jon's true heritage.
Right.
oh, yeah. Because in the season 7 one, season 6, we get that flashback of baby Jon face, and then it just instantly pans to adult Jon in Winterfell before the scene.
And
you're
that's
just like, oh,
right.
Oh my gosh.
We get 2 for 1 with that one, yeah. That's crazy.
Do you think that Robb's coronation would have been more climatic if that had happened, let's say, in a theoretical Game of Thrones universe where he, I don't know, saved Ned or just took back some other place like King's Landing or something, and then was crowned, King of the North? Do you think that would have been a...
I don't think he would be crowned King of the North if he saved Ned, because then Ned would be like the Lord of Winterfell.
That's a good point, yeah. I just meant in general, but rather than just on the road after his dad died.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's still pretty impactful the way it was, but I mean, it's entirely possible too that you could conquer and become king while your Lord Father is still the Lord. So that wouldn't rule it out either.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anything else you guys want to say about this scene?
I mean, it had to happen. I mean, he, that's the only way the story would have progressed is, I mean, in regards to the North becoming their own entity again after so long. So, I mean,
yeah.
With him or with Ned dying, that was, kind of a push forward. Like, we got to get the North ballpark rolling over here.
Yeah, I agree with the great John's sentiment that it was the dragons they bowed to.
Yeah.
You know, what the fuck is keeping them under being subservient to the crown at this point? Like, what's up with that?
Another
The
nod
north
back.
is as big as the 7 kingdoms, like the other 6 kingdoms combined. You know, they're their own kingdom up there. There's no reason for them to be playing second fiddle to King's Landing.
Which relates back to Joffrey and Cersei again, you know, talking about what they do about it because it's such a big
Right.
area.
Yeah, like what can you even do, really?
Yeah.
So, what about your number 2, Trav?
Oh, that was
Or actually,
number
since
one.
we combined, since we used your number 1, we'll just say that was your number 2, and we'll go to Kristen's number 1.
Okay.
And then we'll, So, what's your number 1, Kristen?
Okay. Well, I have a feeling that we all have the same thing. For our last one. I could be wrong though. Mine is Daenerys, dragons, the pyre, everything culminating.
Yeah.
Basic. I have dragons, death, unburnt. That's, I mean, just in like all caps.
Yeah.
It's like taking up half my page.
Such a powerful scene.
It is. Daenerys's whole. I mean, I feel like she goes through an entire lifetime just in this one episode. She's lost a child, she's lost her husband, then she has to lose her husband again. She has to kill him, and then she has to burn him. And then this Miri Maz-Dur woman, who I'm sure we'll talk about at length later, and her prophecy, just everything that's culminating into this moment where Daenerys has decided, I'm going to take control of my life and I'm going to step into this role that I think that I'm supposed to have.
She knows, she just knows what she's supposed to do, you know?
Yeah, right? She knows she's not going to die. She knows that she has to put the eggs in the fire. She knows that, only death can pay for life. And, so we've got Drogo, we've got Miri Maz-Dur, and then we've got Daenerys, right? Who is going to basically be reborn in this fire, right?
Essentially, sacrificing her own life.
Right. And at the end of it, you get all the remnants of the Khalasar, who, most of them are gone, and you've got all the weak people, a few blood riders, and the women and children, and they see this girl, this white girl, who's just sitting in the middle of these burning embers after everything's been gone away, and there's 3 motherfucking dragons. Oh my gosh.
She's white girl wasted.
I wrote
Oh my
Jorah's
gosh.
reactions to the dragons in my notes. I was just like, he looks so puzzled and confused and like, what the hell is going on?
Just awestruck.
do,
Because
right?
just a couple episodes ago, we learned that Jorah didn't believe the dragons ever even existed.
Exactly.
Right? He thought they were propaganda. So when he sees her crouching, covered in ashes, unburnt, with 3 dragons, he's like, what the fuck? His reality just...
I would be like, what
is
like
different.
tea did this lady give me earlier? Because I'm not sure if what I'm seeing is right. I think someone's high. I don't know what's going on. I honestly, it's one of the best moments in the entire series. Is when those dragons crawl up, from behind. Drogon is on her shoulder and
stretching his wings out.
Oh my gosh, seeing Drogon, I just get so excited all the time. I'm like, Drogon, yeah, Dracarys. So, but I don't know that. I mean, just the excitement of that moment and just knowing that. I don't know. It was when I read the books, because we in our house, we would read the book and then we would watch the season. So it took us a lot longer to get through the series because of that. And so when I read it the first time, I remember I was just exhilarated that it had happened, right? But then I got to see it, and I thought that the producers did this moment so much justice, and it was just perfectly done. And I was so sad to see Drogo go. I was really hoping that he was going to live. I don't know how, but I was hoping like somehow he was going to wake up in the fire. I don't know how.
Right.
But I was really, really like clutching onto it in vain. So anyway,
The only way that his presence, that his essence, ferocity could possibly be replaced is with 3 dragons. Though.
yeah.
You know, that's the trade-off.
Maybe it takes 1 Drogo to make 3 dragons, you know?
Yeah.
We don't got any more Drogos, so that's why we don't have any more dragons.
Yeah, totally. Oh, that's
So anyways,
funny.
that's my number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 dragons.
Beautiful. I like how it ends the season with the same way it ends the books. There's a really powerful line at the end of the books too. I can't remember exactly how
I've got
it
the
is, but I'll
book pulled
paraphrase
up.
it. Oh yeah, you want to read the last line of the entire book?
Will. Let me go to the chapter. Bum, bum, bum.
The last
'Cause
sentence.
I had it up for Miri Maz Miri.
Oh, Miri Mazdur.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Yeah. The Magi.
Burn the witch.
Magi.
As Daenerys Targaryen rose to her feet, her black hissed, pale smoke venting from its mouth and nostrils. The other 2 pulled away from her breasts and added their voices to the call, translucent wings unfolding and stirring the air, and for the first time in hundreds of years, the night came alive with the music of dragons.
Yes.
Yeah.
Love that line. I felt like they nailed the emotion of it with the finishing shot as the dragons screeched for the first time.
And that closing scene, that they do that a couple more times throughout the seasons, don't they? There's
Yeah, they
Yeah,
always
totally.
end it either with dragons or White Walkers.
yeah,
Or both.
Yeah.
Like season 7.
Oh man.
Oh man, so much cool stuff with this. I like the leading up to her stepping into the pyre too. It starts the scene with Jorah, who's like, Khaleesi, I know what you plan on doing. You know, I can't sit by and do nothing and watch you climb onto the pyre with him. I can't see you burn yourself alive. And she's like, is that what you fear? You know, it kind of has like a little like laugh where like she knows something
Silly
he doesn't
human.
know. What?
Silly human.
Yeah, silly human. And then his reaction, obviously he lets her go into the fire and she slowly walks in, which is just so creepy and beautiful. And as her dress is sort of billowing in the breeze, being licked by the flames from all sides. And you can see the fire like just covering Miri Mazdur, who's just screaming and screaming. And then the next morning, you know, you hear the cracking of the embers and whatnot, and Jorah, followed by the remaining Blood Riders, or whoever they are, these 2 Dothraki guys, are sort of, you know, hastily making his way to the center, nervous for what he's going to find. And when he sees the dragons, he drops to his knees and just utters, what does he say? Blood of my blood, you know? Just like,
Yeah.
what the fuck? And everybody just drops.
You know, one thing I didn't really notice. I've watched this like 4 times now, but you know, this time watching it, I was kind of watching all the people as they approached out, or as Jorah and the Blood Rider. What was his name? Oh man, I'm spacing.
Mago?
Yeah. And as they were walking out, every time they'd pass someone, people were like waking up, and so I'm like, and some of them were already awake. And so it was kind of like in the back of my head, I'm like, they weren't that far away from her, and there was nothing blocking. So how long was she just crouched in like a ball position before somebody like approached her?
Yeah, maybe she was like in a trance or something.
Yeah. It was just kind of something weird that I was thinking about. I'm like, has she just been kind of hanging out all night and nobody dared go over there?
Yeah, I guess. Just totally focused on the dragons.
Yeah.
Probably not even paying attention to anything else around her. It's wild, man. And how about that scene where she bathes Drogo and smothers him?
Yeah.
It's like the most brutally sad scene ever.
I like
And that's taken straight out of the books too.
Mhm.
I mean, almost word for word.
I kind of when I see scenes like this, I kind of like picture how they tell the actors like how. Okay, they're like, okay, in this scene, she's gonna put a pillow on your head, and every once in a while, we need you to jerk your body a couple of times, like just death scenes in general. I always think about how the actors like are pulling it off, you know.
Yeah, in this one particularly too, his soul is so far gone that his body isn't even reacting like for self-preservation purposes. His arm just kind of twitches a little bit, doesn't even rise up to try to prevent it from happening at all.
Right.
He's just useless. Just horrifying. Just the concept of, you know, she lost her son and her son and stars like all at once. You know, they say that every time a Targaryen is born, it's like flipping a coin, a 50-50 shot between greatness and madness, essentially. And we're so fucking lucky that this didn't drive Dany to the dark side. Having everything she cares about stripped from her, she could have, you know, birthed dragons and gone criminally insane and just wasted everybody. Yeah.
Well, thankfully, Viserys treated her like such garbage that, you know, I think they probably grounded her into a human being.
Yeah, where she just doesn't want to treat people that way because she knows how it feels.
And, you know, she does have some crazy in her.
I was just about to say, there's a lot of theories out there that are, you know, people are speculating whether or not that she's actually a bad guy.
I don't think so. I think she's a good guy.
In Cersei's story, she is.
Yeah. From Cersei's POV.
But Cersei's a crazy bitch, so.
Totally. Oh, man. Yeah, the monologue she goes through saying, you know, you've always been a fighter. I needed to fight now. Do you remember our first ride, etc.? And he just, no reaction from Drogo. He's so far gone. She sort of repeats to him what Mirri Maz Duur said. When the sun rises in the west and sets in the east, then you shall return to me, my sun and stars, before she totally just suffocates his bitch ass.
While we're on the mark of, or the talking about Drogo, not the mark, I kind of wrote down in my notes that Mirri makes Drogo into how she felt.
Oh, yeah.
And it's kind of like, I mean, she went into this whole speech about how Dany didn't actually save her and how she's like hollow inside and like, you know. So it kind of makes me think that Drogo's end result is kind of how Mirri felt on the inside.
Yeah, tell me exactly again what it is you think you saved, Dany, you know, and she's like, your life. And she's like, well, take a look at your cow, bitch, because then you'll see exactly what life is worth when all the rest is gone. You know, she's stepping through piles of heads in the road of people who she's healed over the past couple moon cycles, you know, just wasted time, wasted life. And yeah, she definitely makes up for it. She gets revenge for those people.
Exactly.
You know, so as much as we hate Mirri Maz Duur, she definitely deserves some credit for avenging the deaths of her innocent, you know, sheep, lamb men and whatnot. It's funny too also when Dany's giving her monologue at the end and she says, you'll hear the people that have wronged you scream, you know, and Mirri says, you will not hear me scream. I will, but it's not your screams I want, only your life. And in the books, Mirri kind of like freaks out a little bit when she says that and realizes what Dany's planning, I think, but she kind of like says it to herself on the TV show, and I don't think Mirri hears her at all. But wow, Mirri Maz Duur has some pretty convincing screams in this scene, huh?
Yeah, it's out there, like kind of screaming, and after she just said that she wasn't going to, like,
right? Pretty bone chilling screaming. I think the actress did a really good job.
You know,
she had to have known that that's how it was going to end.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. They probably. I'm sure they had whoever they were casting for the parts. You know, have her scream and see how it sounds. I'm sure they made sure she could scream
like, here,
well
put this,
before.
her stunt double in there, and we'll just use actual fire.
Yeah, pretty.
Make it realistic.
Were you gonna say something, Kristen?
No, I do want to talk about Mirri Maz Duur, but now's not the time.
Okay.
I know that she comes up a lot in the listener feedback. So
Okay.
Okay, so we'll talk more about it then. Anything else you want to say about this part, Travis?
I think I'm good on that.
Was that your number 1 as well, or your number 2 technically? Or do you have another point to talk about?
Well, my number 2 was the three-eyed raven and the cryptic dreams, but we kind of already covered that part.
All right. Any notes you guys want to discuss?
well, oh yeah, what was your number 1, Duncan?
Oh, mine was the Drogo pyre and whatnot as well.
Okay, we had the same one.
Yeah.
We all have the same one.
For our
Yeah,
listeners,
I have quite a few notes. How about you, Travis?
I made a lot of notes. Yeah. So we got. Did anybody
Go ahead.
else mark down that? Where did it go? Sorry, people. I have a lot of notes. Oh, here it is. Sorry. Varys calls out Littlefinger on visioning himself on the throne.
Yes.
I have Varys and Littlefinger as well. Yay!
Yeah, that was my 4, just in case.
Yeah,
Just in case.
that was my honorable mention.
That was
Yeah.
was my next one down.
I have.
I called it the 50 Shades of Varys and Littlefinger.
Nice. I said Varys and Baelish's intellects dance in front of the Iron Throne.
Yeah, I mean, it's just such a blatant truth, from all of these, like, throughout the whole entire season, we don't really know what their end game is, because like you said in last week's podcast episode, when you and Jason were talking, they don't really have point of views,
Right.
in the books and stuff that Martin wrote.
Yeah, no point of view chapters.
So hearing Varys, just kind of call Littlefinger out on the spot like that about visioning himself on the throne, you're like, that's like that stays true throughout the whole entire series. That's what Littlefinger wants, and he mentions it a few times as well.
Oh yeah, we really do learn a lot about these characters in this moment too. It's so funny. Varys is like, when you see yourself on the throne, what do you look like? Does the crown fit? Do all the people who wronged you over the years simper and bow? It's hard for them to simper and bow without heads. God damn, dude, just be right up front about that.
I feel like Varys and Littlefinger could just have their own little like mini sitcom show.
Yeah,
just all their meetings,
These scenes with them in front of the Iron Throne, I feel like they're like figure skaters or something, like dancing with each other, literally. So funny. And we learn again, Varys says, I must be one of the few men in this city who doesn't want to be king.
And I believe it.
Yeah, which is totally consistent. And I love Baelish's his reply to that. You must be one of the few men in this city who isn't a man.
And he's like, you can do better than that.
Yeah. When they castrated you, did they take the pillar with the stones? I've always wondered.
How much time do you spend thinking about what's in between my legs?
I picture a gash.
Don't you think it's funny that Varys and Littlefinger, they have these different facades for whatever situation they're in, right? And
both playing their roles, like we said.
They're like, they each know that they're lying to each other as they speak to each other, and they have this like mutual, like, disdainful respect for each other.
In this scene, Baelish says, "I admire you," like just out of nowhere.
At the same time, they had each other's backs which Littlefinger never does. And Littlefinger was like, "Look, here comes the small council! Yay, long live the king!" So they were able to kind of turn the conversation on a dime, and then swoop into their small council facade, right? So it's just so fun to watch them kind of be a different version of themselves depending on who they're around. And then you get both of them together alone and they're like, oh, you're a fucking liar. Yeah, so are you. Cool. All right. Well, why don't we lie to each other and we'll just sit there,
Yeah, you're
and we know
liar,
we're lying
so
to each other, so that's fine.
Yeah, they're like, it's pretty cool, actually. Baelish says he admires him, and then Varys responds, I admire you, Lord Baelish. And Peter says, "So here we stand in mutual admiration and respect." It's so weird, man. They have such a bizarre dynamic. And like you said, they never kind of like ruin each other per se. I think they know that the machinations of each other are more helpful to each other overall than they are hindering at this point. So they're not making any moves against each other. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like playing a game of Risk or chess with someone that you have mutual respect for.
Right.
Like, have you ever played a game of chess or Risk or whatever?
Yeah, but I'm really bad at it.
If you could play either one of those characters against one of those games, who would it be?
Neither.
Neither.
No, I'm really bad at chess.
I'd
man.
probably want to play. I'd rather play Varys. I think I'd have a better chance against Varys.
Yeah.
Peter seems really good at chess.
And Risk, so.
Nice. I've never played Risk, but I've played a lot of chess. My friend, my best friend up in Canada, this dude Don, is building. He's like machining a custom chess board. Actually, 2 of them, one for each of us, so we can play long distance. So I'm looking forward to that. That'll be cool.
Well, if you ever come to Portland, I have Game of Thrones Risk. So
nice. Perfect.
Yeah.
Any other notes you guys want to talk about?
Can we talk about Sirio for a second?
Yes.
No.
Oh.
yeah, of course.
I just want to say one thing about Sirio. So when Joffrey and Sansa were out there on the platform or whatever, and he's like, "There's your septa and there's your dad," and blah blah blah. Sirio's head isn't there. And
right.
I think that's kind of worth noting, only because if he was taunting her this bad, he would be like, "And there's your sister's dancing instructor," you know?
Right. Yeah, like he stood up against us. Same with Mordain and Ned. Yeah, he should have been right up there with them.
Yeah.
So I would just like to add to the thought that Sirio is not dead and that he is Jaqen H'ghar.
Delusions.
Yeah, that's fine.
No,
and then when I'm right, you guys can be like, "Okay, you're right."
I
hope Sirio's alive.
Yeah, like,
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
I wrote
We
in
definitely-
quotation marks, or maybe he will give me yours when talking about
Right, that was so awesome.
It was just like a verbal backslap, like right there. Like, oh, like just, talking about Rob and knowing what becomes of Rob. It's kind of sad.
Joffrey's so disgusting on so many levels. Yeah, that point. After I raise my armies and kill your traitor brother, I'm going to give you his head as well. Or maybe he'll give me yours. And he kind of like freaks out. Oh, man. She almost pushes him off the bridge.
And in the books, that scene is a little bit more climactic. At least I felt too. I don't want to go too far into the book talk, but that scene with Sansa, whenever I watch it like in person, I just remember her point of view, and she's like, mulling it over in her head, like, I could do it. I could easily. Yeah. It's just like,
they'll kill me too, but
5 feet. They'd kill me too, but it'd be worth it, Like she's just mulling over this whole scenario in her head, and then the Hound just puts his hand on her, and
stops her.
That's interesting that you say that, because now when you think about it, because as you're talking about that, I'm realizing each one of these Stark kids did something super rash.
Yeah, super rash.
Sansa was stopped by the sanity that was the Hound. But yeah,
saving her life yet again.
Gotta love that guy, man.
Me too. Maybe that's the first time he saved her life, actually.
Yeah. Did anybody else make a note on Pycelle?
Yes. Yeah, I did.
Okay. Because I've watched the scene so many times, and I still have no idea what's up with this dude. Like, his whole true greatness quote, and then all of a sudden when she leaves, he's all like limber and doing jumping jacks. And
yeah, it's weird. He reveals his limberness right after mentioning how people often don't see the enemies that are right beside them.
Yeah.
I wonder if that meant that he may have had some sort of hidden intention, but he's so freaking old. Like, you'd think he would have made his move by that point.
Okay, but who did he serve?
He seemed
to hate everybody.
Yeah, he served the Mad King. He may have served a king.
No, I mean, who was his loyalty to?
Oh, I think at this point his loyalty's been to House Targaryen. I mean, House Lannister. He's like pretty loyal to Cersei.
I don't know. He hated her.
Yeah, but I think
at the end.
Yeah,
When-
Pycelle
at
is
what
a
point?
really weird character.
I mean, at every small council meeting, he would, when it was Tywin and Olenna
Oh, right.
and all of them, like he would just sit there and he would just look so smug and happy that she was ousted. So it was just, I could never understand what his end game was. Like, who do you serve?
Yeah, it's a good question. I feel like he was loyal to Lannister house when Tywin was in charge for sure. And at one point, I seem to remember him begging for his life, saying like, "I've always been loyal to Lannister, House Lannister," or something. But
So maybe he was Tywin's spy.
maybe that's a good thought.
The whole limberness thing reminded me of kind of like Melisandre with the glamour.
Yeah, the old age thing.
Yeah, like it's just I don't know if it was just if it was magic or if he was just acting or just it's one of the things that's like to this date it still confuses me whenever I see that scene. I'm like,
he's
I have
definitely
Mm-hmm.
he's definitely like playing a character, almost like Varys does with his disguises and whatnot. But how about Roz in that scene? She's just like so over it. Imagine having to be that guy's whore. No, thank you.
He gave a pretty interesting speech, though. Like, the amount of stuff he was covering, if you're not really paying attention to what the hell he's talking about. But
Yeah,
if you know,
he
like,
talks
all
about
the,
a lot.
Yeah, if you know, like, all the back history and all that kind of stuff, you're like, whoa, how does this guy has a lot of information.
Watching Ares melt away before his eyes, consumed by dreams of fire and blood and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And he starts off saying, "The thing about kings you need to know is..." Yeah, he never gets around to the point, so she's like, "And so, what's the thing?" He's like, what thing? The thing about kings? You started saying, "Oh, I can't hear you." Fuck it, I'm out of here. Don't bother getting up. Hilarious.
Don't even pay me. I'll get you later. I gotta go.
Yeah. Roz is a funny character. Too bad she meets her end with Joffrey.
Yeah.
God, I hate that guy.
We got our first time today in a while with Joffrey being a douchebag. I feel like he hasn't really been major in the past couple episodes.
Oh yeah, because he ripped out that guy's tongue too.
That was my note. I said, Joff is smug towards the singer and tongue punishment.
Right. And he's looking super smug at a couple points in this episode. And then, I remember Miri Maz-Dor looked really smug when she told Dany that Drogo would not be normal until, like, when she gives her little cryptic monologue about the sun and the east and the west and the mountains blowing in the leaves and like wind in the leaves or whatever. She looked super smug there too. And how about the baby? Dany's baby. It said it was monstrous, twisted, scaled like a lizard with leather wings, like the wings of a bat. When she touched him, the skin fell from his bones and he was full of gray worms. It's fucking gnarly.
Was she the only one who saw that? Or
I don't know.
Because I wanted to see that.
Yeah, right.
And if
As
she was
horrible
the
as
only
it is.
one, the witch was the only one who saw it, who knows if that was even real as well. Like,
Yeah, she could have Caprica sixed that little kid.
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You're gonna say something, Kristen?
Mm-mm.
Any other notes you guys want to discuss?
How
How about Jamie?
I was just about to say I like when he got hit in the head with a rock.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. He's given Cat instructions on how to kill him.
Mm-hmm.
Another blow again, right above the temple, and just repeat a few times. You're stronger than you look. It wouldn't take that long.
There are
He
no
admits
men
to
like
killing
me.
Bran or trying to kill Bran, which is crazy.
But not why.
Right, which is funny.
Because the scene gets cut right then and there.
Well, he declines to answer her and just tell her that she should get some sleep. And she sort of like storms off, and then he's sort of sitting there contemplating, and the scene cuts. But yeah, really interesting. He so willingly and brazenly admits to pushing Bran from the window because he hoped the fall would kill him, and then he won't say why, which is so funny. How about Lancel doing Jaime's job?
Gross. And not because of the incest thing, because I understand that that's like a part of this world. It's because Lancel is gross.
I can't believe Red. Whoa, was it this exciting when you were young?
Oh my!
When I was
gosh, what a
young, thanks Lancel.
douche.
You don't say that shit.
He's one of the characters that I guess I didn't notice for a little while that it was the same actor. Same cousin,
right? Well, he
same
looks
dude.
so drastically different.
Yeah.
Looks so different. Oh, another totally douchebaggy moment for Joffrey is when they're walking towards the bridge with the pikes with the skulls, the heads, and he says, "As soon as you've had your blood, I'll plant a son in you." Mother says it shouldn't be long. Oh, and on the spike where Syrio Forel's head should have been. Do you know? Whose head was there?
George W. Bush's head.
Yeah,
in a wig.
they got flack for having a W head up on there. Just fucking
really?
hilarious.
Yeah, Weiss and Benioff were adamant that was not like a vindictive thing that they did.
It's just a head that they had lying around, apparently, right?
Yeah, right, exactly. Just so happens we have this George W. Bush head lying around.
Yeah, it's funny. He's kind of facing the other direction. What?
I was just wondering. I'm like, I wonder if he ever found out about that, like that it was his head up there.
Maybe George W.
Wouldn't
Bush is a
surprise me.
faceless man.
Ooh, maybe. Ooh, that's terrifying.
I'll just let you guys sit on that.
Yeah. Oh man.
I did have a little note right here about Gendry. He was very quickly handed to the Watch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think he was being hidden away.
Protected, yeah, and we know that next season Joffrey's having the bastards executed.
That blacksmith that he was an apprentice for had to know more than he let on. I mean, just to be immediately sent to the Watch.
Yeah.
It's just an interesting development.
And having both hands of the king come and ask questions, and Ned saying, if this boy ever needs anything, like, let me know. Like, he can join me. Yeah, he's got it. He has to know something is up with Gendry. No question. I mean, how did the hand even, John Aaron, how did he even track him there in the first place? Obviously, the bastard was dropped there somehow. There's some sort of trail, which means that he's, this armorer has to know something. He's not a total idiot. I'm sure he figured it out if he didn't know
being
already.
Trusted with some sensitive information.
Yeah, sensitive material and information. Yeah. How about Shay the funny whore? I'm just Shay the funny whore.
Yeah.
I'm having a little bit of
man.
flash, but I just listened to last week's podcast with you and Jason today.
Nice.
While I was at work, so like it's like still like I'm like, wait, what episode? We're on episode 10, right? But I watched episode 10 after I've
On
been watching
Sunday or
it
something.
with you guys, and then I watched episode 10, but then today I listened to a podcast about episode 9, and then now I'm just kind of bouncing all over the place.
It happens.
Yeah.
So that pretty much wraps up the top 5, right? Anything else you guys want to say before we move on?
No, I'm good.
I think I'm good too. Yeah.
All right. We've got a little bonus section, a couple of bonus sections here. First, we're going to talk about our favorite and least favorite deaths of the season. Kristen, how about you start? What was your favorite death this season?
My favorite death was when Drogo killed Mago.
Oh, all right. Yeah, that's pretty awesome with the tongue ripping out through the throat.
And he just told him, I'm not going to burn your body. I'm not going to do anything. You're not going to get any honors. I'm just going to kill you, dude.
Yeah, he sort of like, he does the Colombian necktie 2.0 where he just like pulls the tie right off.
It was so awesome.
Super awesome.
It was my favorite death.
Yeah, that's great. How about you, Trav? What's your favorite?
My favorite was Viserys.
Yeah, that's what I had for my favorite too.
Crown of Gold.
Yep.
It was like one of the first memories of this show, because I mean, I started it many years ago, but it was one of the things that always stuck out, like when I was first watching this show, and then he just got this, molten gold poured over his head. And when I was watching this,
awesome.
I was just like, what the hell is this show about? Like, holy crap. Like, that dude just died by Goldhead, I guess. I don't know.
By gold.
By Goldhead.
Yeah, because crowns of gold are never cold.
Apparently, I don't want to be on the other end of that.
Yeah, definitely. Fuck that.
Right.
How about your least favorite death, Kristen?
Mine was my least favorite one was when Ned killed Lady.
Oh,
It was rough.
Super rough. Yeah, that was really rough.
It was that. Like right when it
Little
happened,
whimper
it
and
just ripped my heart right apart.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fucking brutal.
I can't stand animals in pain.
Yeah.
No, and especially when it was just needless and
Yeah, so
unwarranted and cold. I mean, not Ned, right? I mean,
Right.
he was doing it because
Cersei
he
was
knew-
cold, yeah.
Cersei and Joffrey. I mean, ugh.
Every time a dire wolf dies on this show, I go outside and I hug my pups. I'm just like, no,
Good.
no.
Yeah,
like in season
that.
7, season 7, 6, yeah. When Summer went,
Mm.
I was just like, oh man,
Where are you, Gray?
oh man. And then that happened, and at the end of the episode, I went outside and I just like kind of crawled into the dog pen, and I was just like, I'm gonna hang out with you guys for a little while.
That episode, just as a whole, was one to make you be in the
yeah.
fetal position for a while.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Wait, are we talking about Game of Thrones still, or are we talking about Walking Dead from Sunday?
no. We're talking
Just
about
kidding.
we're talking about Game of Thrones. I know, right?
Yeah.
How about you guys for your least favorite death?
My least favorite death was Drogo,
Ooh.
just because that character had so much potential, and I would have liked to have seen him rip out a few more tongues before he died, or do some other crazy shit like that. So it was just like a flame snuffed out too early that still had a lot brighter to go before it stopped burning, So that was disappointing. But
Yes.
we did get some dragons out of the deal, so
Yeah.
it ends up being okay, I guess. What about you, Travis?
Mine was actually the same as yours. I actually wrote Sirio / Drogo.
Oh,
I was
okay.
having a really, really hard time putting down a least favorite. Drogo, because after his like super badass speech in Dothraki, like I wanted him to make it like across the sea, like that we see in season 7. And just like in the battlefield, like I wanted to see him like in a real battlefield, like a big,
Imagine that.
going out, just going at it, just left and right, fighting. Like
As hardcore as those Dothraki already were without him, like standing on their saddles and shooting, or like jumping off their horses. Imagine what Drogo would do if he was there. He's the craziest of all of them.
That was some really good effect. Like that really made the loot train or loot crate train battle, whatever that battle was called.
Loot train.
Loot train
I would say
battle.
loot crate. Loot
It's
train
an old habit.
battle. I really,
man.
when I first saw that and they jumped up on the saddles, and I was like, oh damn, this is intense. So, and then Sirio, just because I love Sirio. He's one of the characters that I wish and still wish.
Yeah, hopefully
see
we will
again.
see him again someday. That
I
would
wish
be
he could
awesome.
have gone farther with. I mean, just imagine how much Arya's path would have been if he didn't go.
Mhm.
Yes.
Like she would have been. Her whole storyline could have been totally different.
Totally
if he-
different.
Well, you could say the same for Dany too with Drogo.
Yeah,
Danny
no,
never
I
would
mean,
have come into her own fully, probably, which would have
Yeah.
been really sad. Although they may have just come and taken over everything together.
Yeah, the same goes for I was going to mention this earlier too. If the brothers like Sam and all of them didn't stop Jon and he made it back to like let's say Winterfell or wherever he was going to find Robb,
And then Rob's got to behead him.
his whole story would have changed, and honestly I don't think Jon would have made it. He would have been
Yeah, probably not.
He would have been by Robb's side, and then he would have died at the Red Wedding, which would have sucked.
Oh man, that would have been brutal losing
Oh,
Rob
that's
and
depressing.
John
I know
at the
it's
Red
really
Wedding.
depressing, but it's just a everything in this series, every little moment is like there for a reason. Like if you try to imagine it any other way, like these things could have just flipped completely.
Right.
Yeah, totally.
All of these small little things like Sirio not dying, or those brothers, John's brothers, not stopping him that particular night.
Yeah, butterfly effect in so many different directions.
Exactly, and then all of a sudden Ashton Kutcher's on Game of Thrones. So
What? Oh man.
it might still
That'd be
happen. We got
confusing.
one more season.
How about let's jump to our favorite moments of the season. What about you, Kristen? What's your favorite moment of season 1?
Dragons, man.
Dragons. All right. Fuck yeah. Yeah, that's like the clincher that like it's like when the magic starts really in the show, you know what I mean?
Yes.
So fucking cool, man. Beautiful moment. That was like the clincher for me, like, oh, I know I'm coming back. I mean, I already knew I wasn't gonna stop watching, but there's nothing that would stop me at that point.
Yes.
Yeah.
What about you, Travis?
Were you gonna say something, Kristen?
I was going to say, how about you, Travis?
Oh. Mine was the baby direwolves, finding them, and like just that, each one got off or got a direwolf out of it, and Ghost kind of wandered off, and then Theon found, how that one went.
They heard
John.
Ghost.
John heard, yeah. So
John may have heard it. I think it was telepathic. I don't think Ghost ever made a noise.
Yeah,
because he never does.
He's quiet, So
yeah,
I just love that scene where John is just picking up Ghost, and then you just right. And
he's got this look in his face.
He's got this look in his face, and like this is the moment.
That one's yours, Snow.
Like it's just a bond that will last all the way until season 5 when we never get to see Ghost again. Or season 6 or whatever it is.
We'll see him again.
We will. We hopefully will.
He's been ghosted.
Yeah.
How about you, Duncan?
My favorite moment of the season, as fucked up as this sounds, was Ned's death.
Yeah, okay, but I could
wrote
see
that
it.
as my favorite death.
Yeah, I mean, it's horrible and painful and awful, but it's that moment that elevated this show, I think, to the next level of drama that had been surpassing every other TV show in terms of thinking that people are safe. Everybody is at risk in Game of Thrones, and that moment, more than anything for me, like really took this show to the next level where I was no longer feeling comfortable in any way.
Yeah, well, I remember when I don't know if I've ever said this before to you, but when I read the book for the first time, I'll never forget. I was sitting up, I was in my bed, the lights were all on. I remember the moment because I was reading on my Nook. And I turned the page, and then I saw that and I go, wait, hang on. And I went back a couple pages, and then I went okay, I read that. Okay, seriously. and I remember my husband came in, and he looked at me, and he goes, oh, I know what just happened. And I was like, funny. Did Ned fucking die? Like I was just, I thought I was missing pages, like it had glitched out on me.
That's so funny.
That's
so funny.
Ned, on the topic of Ned Stark with your top one, Duncan. Ned Stark, when I first started watching Game of Thrones, I hadn't read the books yet. I watched the first 2 seasons, and then in between, I read the books. But when I first watched the pilot episode, as soon as Ned Stark came on screen, I was like, yeah, Boromir, yeah.
Nice, yeah.
So I was like super on board with it, and then, having seen him in other movies and stuff, I'm like, this probably isn't gonna go very well for Sean Bean.
Yeah, it never does,
but
right?
I'm not gonna spoil myself. I didn't look it up or anything like that. And then when his head got chopped off, I'm like, man, he just cannot catch a break. Like there's
ever, yeah.
And I believe you guys were talking, I think last week or the week before on the podcast about
the movies where he's killed in.
Yeah, all the movies he was killed in. And I wish I could have replied live while you were doing that. But there's a Sean Bean death reel on YouTube.
Oh,
it's like 20 minutes long, and it's just him dying. And it's just one right after another. And if you get a chance, go look at it because you'll be laughing within 3 minutes. At least I was.
I'll post it on the Game of Microphones Facebook page.
Yes, we will.
So everybody can check it out. It's so funny. Anything else you guys want to talk about?
No.
I think that's it for me.
All right, then we will take a little break. Stay with us. There's more to come. But in the meantime, check out this epic song from the perspective of Daenerys. we're back with news about Game of Thrones. But first, that was Seven Kingdoms with The Fire Is Mine, about our lovely and beloved Dragon Queen. And like they say, only death can pay for life. Our first item is an article from Business Insider UK. The Justice League villain is a Game of Thrones fan favorite you probably didn't recognize. Justice League is in theaters this weekend, and while there are a lot of famous faces reunited for the superhero movie, there's one you will certainly overlook. You wouldn't know it from looking at him, but the film's CG villain Steppenwolf is someone you're probably familiar with if you watch a lot of sci-fi or fantasy shows. Steppenwolf is played by Kieran Hines, who also played Mance Rayder on Game of Thrones, the leader of the Free Folk. Sorry,
Dumbledore.
Jason Momoa. Yeah, what?
Dumbledore, too.
Dumbledore is
Dumbledore's
in...
brother, Aberforth, in Harry Potter.
Oh!
Yeah, you don't
man,
recognize
I
him in
forgot
that
about
either.
Huh. Yeah, the article continues. Sorry, Jason Momoa, you're not the only GOT alumnus in the superhero movie. Hines didn't simply voice the Justice League villain either. He performed in a motion capture suit to bring the character to life. They stick a helmet on your head, they put 2 cameras around, and they capture all of your expressions, facial expressions, Hines told BBC of filming his scenes separate from the superhero squad. So basically, they're going to concoct some kind of construction, and they will use my facial expressions, eyes, mouth, voice. They'll turn into this murderous, avenging Steppenwolf from the planet Apocalypse, apparently, who's bent on hell on Earth. Justice League is in theaters Friday. You want to do Tolkien, Travis?
Ooh, yes.
Okay, our next article is by Inverse. Why it is so hard to compare Lord of the Rings to Game of Thrones. If you're a network executive, how do you compete with Game of Thrones? Sure, there's only 1 season left of the landmark HBO series, but talks of spin-offs had been inundated in the news cycles for months, and the season 7 finale tallied a whopping but not unexpected 12.1 million viewers. If you were Jeff Bezos, it reminded you that Amazon needed its own Game of Thrones. The answer to this dragon-sized problem turned out to be the OG master of high fantasy, J.R.R. Tolkien. Amazon announced that it had made a deal with the Tolkien estate and Warner Bros., reportedly spending up to $250 million to acquire the television rights to Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings series. The television adaptation will explore new storylines preceding J.R.R. Tolkien's The Fellowship of the Ring, Amazon revealed on Monday, which I hope it goes into the Silmarillion. The late Tolkien, a war veteran, university professor, philologist, poet, and all-around stereotypical 19th and early 20th century Englishman, had an unexpectedly convoluted writing style. He didn't take future TV adaptations into account when writing about Merry and Pippin hanging out with an ancient talking tree, Treebeard. He wasn't George R.R. Martin. Amazon now has a tough road ahead. Tolkien first published The Hobbit in 1937, and his 3-volume masterpiece, The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, The Two Towers, and The Return of the King between 1954 and 1955. It was actually 6 books as well. The language of the time, and Tolkien's habit of writing 30-page descriptions of feasting dwarves, and the way the wind sounds in the trees will almost be undoubtedly be cut to make way for extended action sequences, quick quips, and more culturally relevant topics. That's not to say that Amazon's show won't somehow maintain Tolkien's encyclopedically thorough style, themes of adventure, bravery, and what it means to be a good person, and a ridiculous amount of Elvish. But it will be simplified, assuming it's all based on an existing Tolkien work at all. Unsurprisingly, Amazon's newly announced, totally mysterious Lord of the Rings show drew almost immediate comparison to HBO's Game of Thrones adaptation, which is fair. George R.R. Martin's Game of Thrones is the closest thing we have to Tolkien's genre-defying fantasy series in the 21st century. HBO screenwriters and producers D.B. Weiss and David Benioff took over writing the adaptation of Martin's still unfinished series during season 6 of the show in 2016, in collaboration with Martin, and the show continued to keep hold of the world's attention in a rare way. Martin, an American sci-fi, horror, and fantasy writer with a background in television and screenwriting, wrote an epic series that was begging to be adapted for TV. Amazon is hoping for a similar cultural obsession for its Lord of the Rings series. Peter Jackson's monumental trilogy adaptation, released between 2001 and 2003, made more than $1 billion at the domestic box office and swept awards shows with the same fierceness that Game of Thrones has. A Lord of the Rings television series, whether a multi-season long-form narrative or an anthology project, like some are anticipating, will almost invariably succeed. Just like Game of Thrones, there will be plenty of purists crying false, but there's no way in hell a straight book to show Lord of the Rings adaptation would be fun to watch. It just wouldn't be. Comparisons between the two shows are astute because, if anything, Martin has always cited Tolkien as one of his greatest influence, but with the caveat that he's also one of Tolkien's biggest critics. While speaking at the Edinburgh International Book Festival in 2014, Martin said, "I revere Lord of the Rings. I reread it every few years. It had an enormous effect on me as a kid." Martin has also publicly questioned Aragorn's tax codes, no joke, and always considered Tolkien's story to be too simple. Lord of the Rings had a very medieval philosophy that if the king was a good man, the land would prosper, Martin said in a 2014 interview with Rolling Stone. We look at real history, and it's not that simple. Tolkien's fictional world has a rich history, but in many ways, it's actually quite simple, and his prose is flowery. That's a combination that will likely prove much more difficult to adapt for TV than Martin's saga. That Sound of the Wind in the Trees thing would be good for a pretty intro song and nothing else. The Winds of Winter, the penultimate novel in Martin's series, is hopefully expected to publish sometime before the show's season 8 premiere, though no promises have been made. Martin's writing and advising Weiss and Benioff on the direction of the story. Meanwhile, Tolkien died in 1973, and anything that's come out since then, including the history of Middle-earth, the Silmarillion, has been published posthumously by his son Christopher Tolkien. The amount of creative control allotted to Amazon by the Tolkien estate is currently unknown, but it's not like Tolkien is around to provide incredibly detailed opinions about the show. Lord of the Rings, ultimately a pure story filled to the brim with triumph and bittersweet happiness, will undoubtedly change to fit the small screen more than Game of Thrones and all its corrupt, prostitute-killing politicians. Oh, that was funny. And that is a good thing. You probably like trees just as much as you like the next person, but there's no way you liked them as much as Tolkien did. Wow, that was a lot to read about Tolkien, but I'm a huge J.R. Tolkien fan, so I just yesterday submitted my resume and my portfolio and a cover letter to every person I could find about potentially working on this new series. Hopefully to create leather armor. I think you've pointed out a few times that, or gave a shout out that I do leather work and stuff, so I'm...
Obsidian Crow Leatherworks.
Yeah, thanks again, man. So I'm hoping to hear back. There was also another little news. I know it's not relating to Game of Thrones right now, but Chris Tolkien just resigned as head of Tolkien Estate too. So
interesting. So that'll affect the series too.
Yeah, which is probably why the series has the green lit by Amazon. I've been following all this news lately.
Interesting.
And his last work was Beren and Luthien that just came out earlier this year, which has way more history. So if you're super into Lord of the Rings, you should go check that out because that's his last book that he compiled. And without Chris Tolkien, like Tolkien's legacy is preserving his father's legacy. So it's just this never-ending love for Middle-earth. So I really, really recommend you guys all looking into all of that.
Nice. You're up, Kristen.
Okay. Tywin Lannister could come back for Game of Thrones prequel. As far as Game of Thrones deaths go, the murder of Tywin, the narcissistic Lannister patriarch who basically ruled from the shadows after Joffrey took to the throne, was definitely one of the most satisfying. It's hard to imagine a more suitable end for such a colossal shitbag than taking a crossbow to the chest at the hands of your own son while skirling one out on a medieval-style bog. It's like poetry. The only downside was that he was such a fantastic character, it was really a shame to have lost him with several series still to go. However, a Lannister always pays his debts, and Charles Dance owed it to us, the viewers, not to let a character this brilliantly unlikable disappear from our screens forever. Speaking during an interview with Metro, Dance said that he would be more than happy to take part in a Game of Thrones prequel, his only caveat being that it would need to be just as brilliant at what came before or after it. When asked about the potential for Tywin's return in a hypothetical prequel, Dance said, "If it was in the same caliber, yes, because Game of Thrones really was as good as it gets. It's a fantastic series." He added, "I look back on it fondly. Occasionally you have long days in the cold and the horse doesn't behave properly or the armor sticks in the back of your neck, but we're not down in the mines digging for coal, we're actors." If he thought a Game of Thrones prequel seemed too good to be true, then buckle up, because in fact there are reportedly as many as 5 of them in the works right now. Woo. Granted, it's all a bit hush-hush at the moment, but creator George R.R. Martin did discuss one of the projects on his blog and even announced that longtime Game of Thrones writer Brian Cogman was working on it. Martin said, "I can say that, like the other pilots, it will be a prequel rather than a sequel. Series will be an adaptation and one that will thrill most fans of the books. I think set during a very exciting period of Westerosi history. And I'll be working with him every step of the way. We're going to be co-creating the show." HBO should have a wealth of material to choose from, and it's not even counting the 4 weird-ass series concepts I've come up on my own, just for the hell of it. There are 8 million stories in the Naked City, and maybe 10 times as many in Westeros and the lands beyond the narrow seas. So it looks like we've got nothing to worry about in terms of getting our fix once the curtains close on Season 8. However, as for Tywin Lannister making a comeback, for now, all we can do is hope.
I'd love to see him.
Where's the Naked City?
Yeah, I don't know.
That's what I want to know. And next, we have Raven's Calls.
Caw.
Katie Croft says, "All I can think about is how Tyrion looked like he was in a boy band in season 1 compared to season 7. Yeah, with his blondie.
I totally agree. He looks so gross in the first season, or first episode in the pilot.
Hilarious.
Jennifer Weir says, "I'm somewhat new to your podcast and I've been loving it. This is my second rewatch and it's been great to listen to your observations and comments about each episode. So many great moments in this first season finale. I've seen this episode several times and I still yell at my TV for Sansa to push Joffrey and kill him when given the opportunity. Me too, girlfriend. Seeing Gendry and Arya meet up for the first time makes me hopeful for a reunion finally in season 8. Me too. R.I.P. Khal Drogo, but hello, dragons. This girl, I love you. I love you, Jennifer Weir."
May Almardini says, "My perspective of the episode is the theme of births and rebirths in this episode. I mean, let's start with the 3 awesome dragons. Dany is reborn from the fire. Arya is reborn as she heads on her path to become no one. And Tyrion is reborn as he becomes the Hand of the King to take charge of his life and be on his way to help Dany. Sansa has lost her innocence and is also reborn. I wish the show spent more time on Rickon. They teased us with the knowledge that he has, or that he also has visions, but his character is never developed. Not sure if this is the case in the books." I think, yeah, in the books they give a little bit more of a hint about Rickon, in that the whole crypt scene. And correct me if I'm wrong, Duncan, but they mentioned him off on some islands too at some point.
Yeah, he ends up in Skagos, I think.
Yeah.
Lucy Roberts says, "I'm confused. Does Miri Mazdur ever actually tell Dany that she won't have children in the TV show?" And no, she does not in the TV show, although she definitely does in the books. And I think to make up for not having been told that on the show, that's why they had Dany mention it in season 7 to Jon. Must have been an off-screen thing.
She
Lucy
also mentioned it to Dario.
Oh, did she?
Mm-hmm. She told Dario, well, you know, it'll be brought to light at some point, but she does tell him that she can't have children.
Mm-hmm. I remember that.
Nice, yeah, good to know. Lucy continues, Sir Duncan, do you think that Miri meant to kill Dany's baby? Or was that just a byproduct of her wanting Drogo to die and a bonus? I've never been able to work out if that was her plan all along. I think that she knew what was going on there. Yeah, that's my take. What do you guys think?
I agree. I think that was absolutely what she wanted. She wanted to kill the stallion that was going to mount the world. The Call of Calls.
Didn't she say that at some point in the episode? She said like he would have been the stallion that mounted the world, you know. So.
Although she didn't necessarily say that, yes, I knew this was going to be the result. Yeah. But she does say that it's better that he's dead, essentially.
The stallion who mounts the world will burn no cities now. His Khalasar shall trample no nations into dust.
Yep.
Exactly.
Boom.
I loved her accent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
as much as I hated her.
Definitely.
So I read something interesting that I wanted to bring up here just really quick. Is that, you know, when she does talk about this prophecy, you know, there is like 2 sentences that is not in the show that was in the book, right? It was, when your womb quickens again and you bear a living child, then he will return and not before. Mm-hmm. And so I read this, I don't know if I read it in an article or a comment or I don't know where I read it, but I thought it blew my mind. I thought it was awesome. How they said if Dany and Jon end up, you know, getting pregnant like everybody thinks that they're going to, and she names her baby Drogo, then that's when she sees Drogo again.
Oh man, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
Drogo Snow.
Yeah, there you go. See, you know.
Let's name him Aegon.
You get it. And then my cousin mentioned the other day, because I was talking to him about this whole theory and stuff, and he said that hang on one second, because I was like, oh, this is actually very cool. He said mountains blow like leaves, like the huge chunks of the wall flying through the air at Eastwatch.
Oh, yep. Snap. That's a good call. And the wall is as tall as a mountain, basically is a ice mountain.
Right. Wow. And, you know, the Dothraki Sea in the books was starting to dry up, or it was starting to freeze over at the wall. Like, you know, so you never know.
Yeah.
Nick Wickens says, I was really sad losing Drogo in this episode the first time around, as I had all this excitement about seeing him fuck shit up in Westeros. Didn't read the books till after season 1, so I wasn't expecting it. In hindsight, I'm glad they made changes to that part of the story, particularly in the fight with Mago, as this didn't happen in the books. Instead, he just defeated some other calls, which would be badass, but happened outside the point of view, so I prefer the show version. That and more interaction with Dany made me more invested in his character in the show. Though time has passed now, and I think, especially after episode 9 of season 6 and pretty much all of season 7, it's fair to say the Drogo for Dragons trade was a fair one. All in all, this event and episode in general is where Dany's ascension to badass truly began.
For sure.
Definitely.
Also, Duncan, I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on Tywin's motives in this episode. I can't seem to view it as anything other than genuinely giving Tyrion a chance and almost handing him an olive branch. If Tyrion had seen it more as such and not brought Shae with him, I think things could have been a lot different for him and the Lannisters as a whole. The reason I think this is genuine is I can't see what Tywin had to gain in anything else, and clearly demonstrated he at least valued Tyrion's potential more than Cersei's. I'd love to get your thoughts on this, as after all these years, viewings and readings, I may be missing something that makes it all more sinister, but I've always had the feeling that Tyrion fucked up his chance here. Despite doing a good job as Hand, he failed to respect Tywin's wish and therefore didn't get the recognition he wanted or deserved, because the direct violation of the order did not bring the whore with him eclipsed his achievements in Tywin's eyes.
That's a really solid way to look at that. I think that's pretty pretty much spot on. Yeah,
Mhm.
definitely, really good.
It's so sad that the whore would eclipse everything else.
Yeah,
And that,
especially when Tywin ends up getting down with that whore.
I was to say, and
Ugh.
that's assuming that she wasn't planted from the beginning, like you guys mentioned in the previous
Yeah.
podcast.
Tywin obviously knew who she was. She could have been planted.
Right.
Don't take that whore with you. Like, he knew about her.
She was bought for the trial. They bought her off in the trial, but I'm not sure that... I think she loved him.
Yeah, I think so too.
She was so strong, and she would have protected Sansa. She would have given her life for Sansa.
Yeah,
That's
Mhm.
that's not somebody who's easily swayed.
that's a good point. That's a really good point. Yeah, definitely not easily swayed. For sure.
She did a really good job acting, the actress who played her.
I
Yeah.
agree.
Like her portrayal, like just the flips and like you didn't. I mean, when I watched it the first time, I wasn't expecting the her turning on Tyrion like that.
No,
Yeah, pretty
that was
crazy.
surprising.
Because I mean, it seemed genuine, you know, like it just seemed like she was there with him in the city. So
Yeah.
When Tyrion married Sansa, that was, I don't know, that was a big turning point for Shay.
yeah,
Yeah, true.
yeah, that could have been the moment that she decided, you know.
She should have, like, understood, though. I mean, what's,
Yeah,
you know,
I think he explains, you know, like he's like, I didn't choose this, I didn't, you know, all of that.
yeah, she
He
just tried.
tried.
A book.
She was not someone to reason with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. All right, you're up, Trav.
Okay, Kira Brown says, you know, as rough as this show is, can you imagine if they had made the beheading of Ned the season finale? Say what you will about the brutality of this show, but I doubt so many people would have come back for season 2 without the hope of dragons to come.
Totally.
I definitely agree. I loved the way they ended it with them babies and Dany standing in all her new strength and glory. We lost Ned. She lost Drogo. She thought it was over. We thought it was all over. She got dragons. We got dragons. And it was like, all right, let's take it to level 2 and do this. Turn it up to 11. Also, in regards to Tywin, don't play yourselves. Tywin has never been stupid. He knows that Cersei isn't as strong as she thinks she thinks she is, and that his grandson is an immature savage. That's a good word for that.
Yeah.
He couldn't use Jaime, so guess who he can use as a hand that won't give him so much lip? Tyrion, you got played, son. He knows you're loyal to the family and just as crafty as the rest of the family. Why not use Tyrion for a while and cast him aside once you're done with your war?
Another good take on that.
Yeah.
For sure. Carla May says, I marathoned the first season in one night, and the last episode sealed the deal. Read the entire series and was hooked. I'll never forget the image of Dany and the dragons.
You didn't read the entire series in one night, did you?
That'd be amazing.
Yeah.
We've got a couple emails as well. Take it away, Kristen.
This is from Archmaester Rennie. And so we come sadly to the end of season 1. This episode had really great opening and closing shots. It opens with a tight shot on ice, dripping with Ned's blood, and closes with baby Drogon spreading his wings on Daenerys' shoulder. Both really iconic images. Other than those shots, my 3 favorite scenes in this episode are Bran and Rickon's visions of Ned in the crypt, Catelyn saying that she and Robb would get the girls back and then we'll kill them all. Yes.
I quoted
Chilling if you know what's coming. And the scene between Varys and Littlefinger. The scenes between the two of them, which can never happen in the books because those two don't have POV chapters, are one of the best additions to that the show makes. I totally agree.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about it like that. That's awesome.
Season 1 was a really great adaptation of the books, with the exception of the invention of the character of Raz and the use of sexposition. If there had ever been a subsequent seasons, I still would have found the show really satisfying. See you in season 2, Archmaester Rennie. I liked Raz.
I liked sex position.
What would Tyrion, or not Tyrion, Well, I guess, yeah, Tyrion too.
Pycelle.
I was gonna say Theon. What would
Oh
Theon
my
be
gosh,
like?
she really got around.
Theon in season 1, he'd be like, no Roz, what?
She's the village bicycle.
Yeah. North, south, doesn't matter.
Yeah, all villages.
Do you want to read this one, Duncan?
You're next.
Oh, I'm next. Okay. This is from Reich. It says, "Hi, Duncan." That's why.
Yeah.
I'll read it. It's all good. I'll say hi to Reich. Hi, Reich. Just wanted to say thanks for the podcast. I really enjoy it, and it makes waiting for season 8 so much more bearable. By the way, people in Berlin are listening to the podcast too. That's awesome.
That's
all
cool.
the way around the world.
What up, Berlin?
You know, I was there not last summer, but the summer before that. I would have met up with you guys if I would have known that.
Shout out to Germany.
Woo!
Ew.
I'm a little bit behind with listening, so I don't have any episode-related things to contribute. But there is one thing I wondered ever since Jon Snow's real parentage was revealed. What did Robert Baratheon think Lyanna Stark died of? Surely he can't have known she died in childbirth, otherwise Ned showing up with the baby bastard would have been a little bit too obvious. So what did Ned tell Robert about Lyanna's death? Is there something that I missed about that? Thanks, and looking forward to a year full of new podcast episodes. Reich. And he put a smiley face as well.
That's a good question. Do you guys know why everybody thinks Lyanna died?
I've always wondered the same thing. Like, I've never been able to find an answer to, like, how she died. Christian?
Maybe it was just assumed that Rhaegar killed her. I mean, everybody thought that he imprisoned her.
Raped her and stuff.
Yeah, and Rhaegar's entire family had just been killed.
But it had to be known that 3 or 4 of the Kingsguard were down at the Tower of Joy protecting her.
Yeah, but nobody knows about that. Nobody knows about the Tower of Joy except for Ned
nobody knows
and
the
Howland Reed.
specifics. But they know that 3 Kingsguard are buried under cairns down there, and that shit hit the fan there. You know?
But
People
nobody
definitely know
knew
that something
until
happened.
nobody knew that Lyanna Stark was in there. I mean, we didn't.
No.
I mean, we theorized for years and years, but we didn't really know
Well,
until recently.
Everybody knew that. I think that people knew that Lyanna was down there, but nobody knew about the birth. That's for sure. Because, I mean, Ned showed up there because he had intel that Lyanna was there. You know, like, where's my sister? And Arthur Dayne's like, I wish you good fortune in the wars to come. So I feel like people knew that Lyanna was there. And people definitely knew about the aftermath, considering Arthur Dayne was killed and everything like that. So people know about the occurrence. I just don't know what the reason that people think Lyanna died was. It's so weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
George.
That's a
George,
great
help us.
question.
Yeah, really good question. I don't even have any answer for that, really. That's pretty good. That's wild. Maybe
If
maybe
anybody
we'll learn someday.
knows, if any of the listeners know, write in or post it up if you have any
Yeah, for sure.
intel on that. That would be a really great answer.
I feel
to
like
know.
I looked this up a long while ago, and I don't think I ever came up with anything. So please, please write in.
To the one person that's screaming at us right now.
I know they're like it's right in front of you.
What's it, game at podcastica.com. Tell us.
Yes. Please, thank you.
Our next email is from Sir Pete of Longwood. Hey guys, love your podcast. Do you guys think Ned seems to feel like he broke his promise to Lyanna? Do you think he told somebody? What else could it be? He kept Jon safe and his secret seems safe so far. If so, who did he tell? Benjen? Also, I read somewhere that George originally wrote Hodor as a black guy named Hody-Do, but his editors had him change it because it was too close to hold the door. Do you know if this is true?
That just can't be true.
Love you guys. Sir Pete of Longwood. Love you too, Pete.
Cannot be
Sir
true.
Pete.
It sounds
Yeah, there's
like
no
one of
way.
his friends is just messing with him.
Yeah.
That would be really, really funny, though.
I honestly, I don't
Specifically,
know.
he was black.
I don't have
also.
a for sure answer for you.
Hody-Do. My name's Hody-Do. It says Hody-Do all the time instead of Hodor. Hey, Hody-Do. Hody-Do.
Well, I think Duncan,
You're up,
you and I have
Kristen.
actually talked a little bit about who knows what, and how much do they know. Like, does Jamie know
Right.
anything? And
Maester Aemon could theoretically know if Benjen knew.
Benjen knows, right? How would the story be different if Catelyn knew?
Right. Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
What do you think, Travis? Do you think Benjen knows at least?
I want to believe that Benjen knew. But a part of me also thinks that I might just be playing into like fan theory and like
I want to believe
the
truth is out there.
Yeah. I think if anything, or if anybody was aware of the situation, it would have been Benjen. If it was
definitely
like on the table as a possibility.
Could be why Benjen ultimately sacrificed himself for Jon to live at the Magnificent Seven battle.
The Eastwatch 7, yeah.
Yeah.
Did you guys, when you were watching the live episodes, did you guys get spoiled on anything prior to due to the leaks?
Nope.
No.
Oh, you're so lucky.
I went dark. I didn't go on media, nothing.
I scrolled past like everything that had anything related to Thrones until I saw like the weekly episode, and I don't remember where I saw it. It was somewhere on Facebook, and it was one of those like Game of Thrones fan pages or whatever it was, and it showed pictures, like 4 pictures of Viserion's ice eyes, like opening up.
Oh, snap.
And I was like,
oh my
damn
gosh.
it. And then I
sucks.
got spoiled by that. And then like the next day, this was like this was weeks before that episode even aired, because that was the final one. I know that was the one that was prior to the final, right? And then before that, or like literally the next day, I also saw something about Benjen dying, and I was like, "Are you kidding me?" I refused to believe it was real until I actually saw it, and then I was even more upset.
Maybe like Ho-Di-Do.
Yeah.
What you didn't see anything about though was Ghost.
I know, right?
There's nothing to see.
Yeah.
All right, you're up, Kristen.
This is from Caroline Collins. Hi, Throners. Great to have Jason back on last week's episode. I totally agree. Just to clarify my comment about Joffrey dying earlier, if Ned had exposed him as a bastard, maybe the angry mob would have turned against him, or Stannis and Renly would have had bigger numbers and maybe could have been more successful in their campaigns. The small folk in King's Landing seem to really hate the royal family anyway, so I'm surprised Cersei and Joffrey, they don't get attacked every time they leave the Red Keep. They seem to just want a scapegoat, and to turn it around and have it be Joffrey instead of Ned would have been so sweet. Speaking of this episode, Fire and Blood, the biggest thing I noticed was that the final 2 scenes were Jon followed by Dany. The way they framed Jon's scene, it could have been the final scene of season 1 until the pyre appeared, and I remembered about Dany and her dragons. It's almost like they're giving Ice and Fire equal weight as they close on season 1. Ah, that's
nice.
True.
Yes.
I really haven't noticed this until this rewatch, how central Jon is against all these side stories. I think because my favorite characters are Arya and Tyrion, I'm sure I'm not alone, even skimming through Kat and Davos's chapters to get back to my faves. I was too focused on whether they would survive 1 week or 1 chapter to the next. It almost went unnoticed that the real story was winter coming and Dany and her dragons making it across the narrow sea. Finally. A few other little details that stood out this time. The episode opens with blood and closes with fire. Oh,
yeah.
Nice.
The last word spoken is also blood, unless you count Drogon's shriek as a line.
Which
Right,
means
blood of my blood.
Yep.
Is this
It's
shrieking?
weird that Arya and Gendry are walking as they leave King's Landing. Aren't they 2 people Yorn doesn't want seen or recognized? At the time I was thinking, are they going to walk all that way to the wall? And then I realized how out in the open they are. I'm glad her Rachel haircut protects her. I love Friends references. Thanks for seeing us safely through season 1. I'm rereading the books to remedy all the skimming. So take your time on season 2. I'm not even halfway through the first book. I agree with Duncan on the books. If you love the show, the books are very enjoyable, especially if you know the characters and a little bit of the history of Westeros. I can't wait to get beyond the wall and freeze our butts off, or get to the Red Waste and eat our horses. See you in season 2, Caroline Collins.
So no one told
Awesome.
you life was going to turn out this way. Insert clap.
Next. Yeah. Our next email comes from AV. Great podcast. I've listened and continue to listen to every episode. Keep it going. Thanks, AV. Here are some of my thoughts that you may find interesting. 1. When Jon traveled to meet Daenerys for the first time in Season 7, Daenerys did not know Ned, Hand of King and Jon's father at that time, openly rebelled against King Robert killing her unborn baby. Yeah, that's true. That would have been good for her to know, that Ned stood up for her and against having her killed, too, not just her baby. I was wondering, why did she still believe this? 1, Varys was on the small council and knew Ned did not want her baby killed, and also knew that Ned even quit his hand over this. Also, didn't Captain of the Kingsguard Barristan know his objections to this too? Ned's hand, his resignation from being Hand was big news, and King Robert was emotional and hardly kept his frustrations just to himself.
Drunk.
In fact, yeah, in Season 1, Episode 7, just as Ned came out of Robert's room, he spoke to Varys about Robert wanting to cancel the kill order of Daenerys' unborn baby. Barristan was there and could hear everything. 3, both Varys and Barristan were advisors and shared a lot of past knowledge with Daenerys. One would think that at least one of them would have shared this bit of info with her. Of course, Daenerys not knowing this fact adds to the story and drama. 2, Arya's confrontation with 2 dumb guards at King's Landing in Season 1, and then again in Season 7, Episode 4, when she returns to Winterfell. Both cases, the guards did not believe her. They threatened her, and in both cases, she used similar threats about what might happen to them if they turned her away, and Ned/Sansa found out. There was another, but I seem to have forgotten it. I'll send it if I remember. Cheers, AV. Thanks, AV, for writing in. Lots of good stuff there. Yeah, I wonder how Danny doesn't know about that. It's funny too, because Ned, obviously he knew that Jon would be her niece essentially, so it's like it would have been Ned's family through blood sort of marriage being killed. So of course he wouldn't want his sister-in-law to be killed essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy.
Which is pretty cool.
And if he would have just told Jon, there wouldn't be this love thing going on in Season 7.
Or maybe there would
or
be.
Maybe, I don't know. Yeah.
It didn't stop Jaime and Cersei.
Yeah, it's true.
No, yeah, they're knowing. And we also have a voicemail from Anwen in New Zealand.
Hey, it's Anwen here from New Zealand. Just wanted to let you know I have fallen a little bit behind on the rewatch, so I haven't watched tonight's episode, but I did just want to call in and say how I think it's amazing that a show like Game of Thrones can, for such a gruesome show with so much death and destruction, it's incredible how much it pulls people together. It's like an instant recognition when you realise someone that you're talking to is a fan. I even had my yoga teacher recently say she was channeling Daenerys when she pulled out some flying dragon moves. And I glanced around the class and I could see the room divided into either knowing smiles or confused looks. I just think that's really cool. Anyway, love the podcast. Keep it coming and I'll try to catch up.
Thanks, Anwen.
Thanks.
Oh, Anwen. I love hearing from her. I don't know if you listened to the Walking Dead cast, Travis, but she did a call on this week's.
Oh, yeah.
And there are birds chirping as she's talking. Like, she sounds like she's, Aurora
In
from
Middle-earth.
Sleeping Beauty. Just la, 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 la. I'm in New Zealand and I've got birds everywhere. It's awesome.
It's so funny.
Our New Zealand trip is essentially a Lord of the Rings trip. Like, we're going on the North Island and we're going on the South Island and we're going to like all of these film sites like Mount Doom, Mount Edoras, Wellington.
That'll be fun.
Hobbiton.
Yeah, that'll be
Lowland
awesome.
Caves or and all that kind of stuff. And I have a few friends who work at Weta, so we're going to maybe meet up with them and maybe, just maybe, Tolkien's great grandson, who I happen to be friends with. So
Nice.
I gotta see what he's up to and whatnot. So
Definitely hit up Anwen too. Maybe
Yes,
she'll be able to
yes, contact me.
show you something cool.
February 23rd through March 9th. So maybe we can meet up and meet in person.
All right, that's our show, episode 52. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Yeah.
And as always, a huge thank you to Lisa Moreno and Laura Willie Swink for gathering Raven's calls and news. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for helping out. If you'd like to, you can always call us at 813-563-3739. That's 813-JOFFREY.
If you'd like to write in, you can email us at game@podcastica.com.
You can also check out our Facebook page at facebook.com/GOM podcast.
And be sure to check out the other great podcasts at podcastica.com.
Hey, and while you're at it, give us a like on Facebook, and maybe you can write us an iTunes review. That'd be awesome.
Only
Thank
if
you
it's
in
good.
advance. Yeah. Yeah, you can skip the 1-star reviews. We don't need those ones. Next week, we will be covering the Season 2 premiere, The North Remembers. Give it a watch and send us your thoughts. We'd love to read them on air. All right, thanks also to Travis and Kristen for guest hosting today. It's great to have you guys back.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks again.
You are welcome.
It's always fun.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll all three of us will do it again sometime soon, I'm sure. All right, that's our show, everybody.
Thanks for listening.
Do you know what happens to deserters?
Better than you do.
What are you gonna do?
Find my brother and put a sword through King Joffrey's throat. And also brood.
Yeah. Puff the magic dragon
lives by the sea
and frolicked in the autumn mist like a Honolulu. Sorry.